Hello, this is Wmpyr. Okay, I need to say that recently I was fortunate enough to be in an interview conducted by Mr. Dean Franco from Filipino Martial Arts Discussion. So we did a podcast, and I will put down below the link to the interview. Okay, so he has been interviewing Filipino martial arts practitioners. There's some really big names on there, but he assured me that he also did people that are not as well known because I just didn't feel like I belonged in that because there's some really big names in his in the interviews that he has done. So anyway, yeah, I will post the links below and here to just kind of briefly talk about the experience and stuff. Normally, look, I am not a big fan of doing interviews just because, I feel like who am I? I'm just a guy that really enjoys the training, just been in martial arts for a long time, and then, I enjoy the teaching and sharing and also cross training, exchanging of information and stuff. So I really enjoyed the technical side of it, and as far as like affiliations, organizations, politics, and all that, I try to stay away from. I am not into that, and um, you know. I'm not someone who climbed the political ladder. I am not a big name. And yeah, the whole celebrity kind of thing, not into that either. So uh, when you are asked to do an interview, it is definitely part of it is self promotion, which has never been my forte. I just talked to a longtime friend of mine, and he was like, "Man, you could use a little bit of self promotion." And I was just telling him it's just not my thing, like I said, I just focus on training and working on my craft, working on whatever it is that I've been working on for all these years, which is developing my art, my skill. I have just so much fun doing that, and then of course the teaching. And in all due honesty, this is selfish of me, but the teaching part, I enjoy teaching because it helps me review my own material, so that helps me in my own training once again. So it always goes back to my own training. And I've said to my students all the time that sometimes the students feel bad because they're like, "You're teaching me, you're spending all this time on me. What about you?" And I tell them, "No, this is I'm getting a lot out of it too. It's believe it or not, it's not just you." So, but then look, I have seen and I have been to other schools where the instructor's totally selfish and just using the students as a punching bag. I definitely don't do that. You could ask any of my students and they'll tell you that I am not one of those instructors. At the same time, I do believe in like a more laboratory experience where we're all like experimenting because that's how you get good. You got to experiment, test, theorize, study, research, all that kind of stuff, and that is done. At the end of the day, you in class and you have to honestly look at what's going on. You can't just hold instructor status and just be protected by that because a lot of people do. They do protect themselves that way, and it's just um, way too much dictatorship going on, and that to me is not what this is about. Rank and all that, I could care less. So yeah, well, once again, a laboratory environment, that's what I enjoy. So I try to groom my students to become that as quickly as possible. So I like to surround myself as much as possible with assistant instructors, assistant instructor levels to where I'm like, you know what to do, what do you think about this? What do you think about this technique? Well, that's where I really get my enjoyment there. And if not, if they're not on the level, that's fine too. I'll teach them basics, and as I'm teaching them basics, I'm working on advanced. And a lot of teachers will probably say this is that when an instructor, when you have a school, it's always like the white belts that you're afraid of because you don't know what they're going to do. kind of thing. They're more unpredictable. They're not gonna do the trained stuff, and yeah, I could see that, and that's a good thing, and so you should be able to handle that. And if you can't handle that, there's something wrong with your skills. So yeah, I kind of I don't mind training with total beginners as well. In fact, I like to consider my school, my class, as beginner friendly, 100%, and I enjoy that as well. And I kind of feel like a lot of students are shy and stuff, and they're like, yeah, I'm not good at this stuff, and I've seen it all. I've seen from people that are very, very bad, very, very out of shape, very uncoordinated, extremely unflexible. I've worked with people like that, so it's not a problem at all. As a professional, as someone who teaches and gets paid for it, as a professional, I just, it's like going to the doctor. They've seen it all, you know what I mean? And they should not make fun of you or be laughing or, oh, look at this, let me take a photo. They shouldn't be acting that way. Then they're unprofessional. So anyway, yeah, Mr. Dean Franco was very, very nice. Made it least stressful as possible. I feel like he kind of had like a more conversational atmosphere. I wanted to get into more technical talk with him because I know he's like a instructor in several styles, from what I gathered. And yeah, it would have been fun picking his brain and talking about the more technical stuff. Now, when you do that, maybe the average audience might be like, what are you guys talking about? It's just like, it's kind of like when two comic book nerds are talking and it's like the average person can't keep up. It might be like that just because of terminology and stuff and whatever. But yeah, I wish I could have done that, because I prefer more of that than talking about myself. Because once again, I'm kind of like, who cares? I don't care, about me. So in that sense, but talking about technical stuff and learning something new and all that's exciting to me, So just hearing about his viewpoints and stuff on certain systems and certain styles, teachers, directions, and all that is cool. So I tried to reveal as much as I could in this interview my direction, which way I'm heading, why I'm heading that way, and kind of stuff, and yeah, a little bit about my background, probably a lot more than I wanted to in a way, but all this stuff I have out there for you guys to look up. Like I'm not shy about sending out my martial arts resume, and so people can look at it and see. In fact, I have probably a link somewhere on my YouTube channel that'll take you there, and you could look up my martial arts resume if you're interested in stuff like that. I got nothing to hide in that sense. Just a guy who's been doing martial arts for a long time, over 3 decades. There's plenty of people that have done more, longer, and there's plenty of people that have awesome resumes. I'm not one of those people that try to make my resume as fancy as possible. And also, back in the day, I kind of like worked with what was available to me locally and convenience. That was kind of important. Now, there were times where I was one of those guys that drove all the way across to the other side of town, a couple times a week to go train in something that I thought was very, very valuable at the time. So I did do stuff like that. But normally I tried to, whatever was convenient, whatever was available. And sometimes it found me. Like I remember one time, me and my buddy had just come back from fight training, and we were at a restaurant like a Denny's or something, IHOP or Jim's or one of those, and it was in San Antonio, and we were exhausted, dead tired, and we're eating, and we're just martial arts nutheads, so we're talking about martial arts, And the guy there that was working there overheard our conversation, and then it turns out that he was a Savat instructor. So then, you know, I hooked up with him, and learned some stuff, learned a little bit of Savat from this guy. So sometimes it finds you, kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed that kind of cross training experience, which I did enroll in schools, and usually didn't stay super long. Like for example, you know, uh, sometimes it would be couple of months, maybe 1 year max or something. But if I trained in Taekwondo, and then I trained in Karate, and then I trained in Savat, and then I trained a little bit in boxing, and I trained a little bit in Muay Thai kickboxing, and all of those, let's say, were just a couple of months each, right? You add them all together, and at the end of the day, I'm doing stand-up striking. All of those are stand-up striking. So, to me, it's kind of like I'm still working on the same thing, even though the format and all that's different. The theme is different. Some you have to wear uniform, others you don't. Some you got to practice kata, others you don't, but others you're working more in the bag, others are focus mitts, or whatever the case. But to me, it's still all stand-up striking in that case. And the same with the grappling. If I did some BJJ, I did some sambo, a little bit of freestyle wrestling, so a little bit of judo. So add them all up together, I'm still doing grappling, So that was kind of like the way that I saw it. I'm working on grappling now, or I'm working on stand-up, or I'm working on weapons. I'm working on Filipino martial arts, And yeah, Filipino martial arts was just something that stuck with me the longest. The second longest, I would say, was the grappling, just because, um, you know what, I did, okay, maybe second longest is stand-up striking, but the grappling I did for a long time, just because, not because, I wanted to get that good at it, or whatever. It's because it was that difficult for me. I needed to spend a lot of time to become to the point, the level where I was satisfied with myself, So it was the hardest. It was the hardest thing that I did. Out of all the styles, grappling was definitely the hardest. And yeah, stand-up striking is just, the whole Bruce Lee thing. It was just felt natural, very enjoyable. I did like grappling just because, a big fan of professional wrestling and all that, since I was a kid. And that's wrestling, right? A form of wrestling. So, and they do kind of like submission type stuff, like the Boston Crab and a Scorpion Deathlock and stuff like that. But yeah, so covered some of this kind of stuff in the interview. And then yeah, I think for me a big point was choosing Filipino martial arts as kind of as my main thing. And I explained that it was because of an incident in Dallas, Texas, where there was a crime, and I was kind of not involved, but I reported to the police and everything. But because of that, I chose to really focus on FMA, especially before that I was doing any style, as many styles I could get my hands on. And then because of the UFC, I was like, man, if I got challenged right now, I would get creamed on the floor, by someone. Of course, I'm not talking about a UFC level, but, even back then when it was still called NHB, if I was challenged by someone who was into that stuff, I would get creamed on the ground. So that forced me to study the ground and spend a lot of time there, and which I had to conquer, just in case you get taken to the ground. I had to be complete. So I was working on that. But once I got to a certain level, and that took a long time, but once I got to a certain level, I was like, after that incident in Dallas, I was like, I need to really go back to Filipino martial arts for street self-defense purposes. And so I chose Filipino martial arts, Kali, Escrima, Arnis, as my main source material. And then it's like, okay, but I knew after experiencing so much of sport, combat sports, which to me is extremely effective, but it has to be used a certain way, right? And how can I make my Filipino martial arts stuff work in full contact? And that was very a primary interest for me. So I used the full contact stuff as a filter. So step one, source material, which is FMA. Step two is filter. You got to filter it to help you evolve. I think a lot of people, and I mentioned this in an interview, is that people try to test out their stuff, and when they, after the test, they go, oh, it didn't work. This stuff doesn't work. I'm never going to use this. And they switch styles. To me, that's a convert, and I'm not a convert. So I don't do converting, right? For me, it is deducting. I turn myself into Sherlock Holmes, and I try to figure out how to make this stuff work. You know, what did the founders, what were they thinking? You know, what am I missing that the founders knew? So I try to go back to that because I know they had something good. And if they didn't, probably wouldn't have lasted this long, and it wouldn't have all the reputation and all that, you know. So I like to give benefit of the doubt to the founders, you know, to the old school, you know, way, the ancestors of the art. And especially with something like Filipino martial arts that we know historically has come from battlefields, ancient and modern battlefields. So that's why I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt there, that it's not just myths, you know, mythical stuff. So anyway, you gotta filter, put it through the test. So I put it through the test, the filter, and then the result is now I have stuff that I can use. But it's a bunch of random stuff. You gotta organize it, because if you don't organize it, you have a bunch of random stuff, and it's like looking into your toolbox and it's a mess, right? So then if it's a mess, even if you have the best tools on the planet Earth, it's made of titanium, you know, whatever, the best quality tools, if it's in a mess, you're not going to know where to go to get it. You're not going to be able to access it. So that to me is extremely important. Easy accessibility. It has to be simple, has to be easy to understand, easy to apply. You know, you don't have to be, you know, a 50-year grandmaster in order to be able to use it. Anyone can use it, you know. So that kind of simplicity is found only in one place, in my opinion, and that is the military. The military, they teach young soldiers, 18-year-old, you know, fresh out of high school kids, they teach them, you know, and some of them have to get deployed right away. So the military combatives, and Filipino martial arts in its origin is military combatives. So that's my number 3, is organize in a military fashion, right? And that to me, the model that I used was Captain Fairbairn's method. So those are the 3 steps, to me, very, very important 3 steps. And if you guys look at my videos, that is my system, and that is my system, and I teach my system and the traditional to my students. And I go, this is the traditional, which becomes the basics, the foundation, and then I teach them my version, not because I want them to, you know, wear my t-shirt and wear my patches, nothing like that. It's so they get an idea of how to do that for themselves, where they could make their own system, you know. So anyway, it's just to show you how I went about it. You don't have to do it the way that I did, but it'll give you an idea. So one of the things I'm very proud is I have a student in Japan, you know, and I've been guiding him, and you know, I told him, hey, look, you know, it's great that you're doing the Filipino martial arts stuff, but you need, you know, some full contact experience. And the closest thing for an Escrima person to go into full contact is probably boxing. So he went to a boxing gym, and now he's at a Muay Thai gym. He just came back from Thailand, and then he's been cross training with Jeet Kune Do people, and just keeps working on his FMA and cross training. So, and he also did some Japanese sword just because it's available there. He's in Japan. They got Iaido stuff, so he did some of that as well. So super proud of the guy. But anyway, yeah, this video is now past 20 minutes, but just wanted to let you guys know about this interview thing that I did. So if you're interested, please check it out. I apologize for how long it is. It's super long. But yeah, try to cover some things that hopefully you guys will find interesting and useful. So that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.